Well, for more on this story now, we're now joined by our correspondent, Albina Kovalyova, who's in Moscow. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been a big day on the news story, particularly relating to that passenger plane that crashed, was brought down from Sharm el-Sheikh. A photo seems to be doing the round. Tell us about that.
Well, indeed, the Islamic State have published a photo which they say is of an improvised bomb. What it basically shows is a can of Schweppes with what appears to be a detonating device. They claim that it is this which has brought down the plane which killed all 224 people on board. So this is a developing story. Of course, Islamic State have already claimed responsibility for the plane, for taking down the plane over the Sinai, and Russian authorities yesterday confirmed that it was a terror attack, that it was a bomb.
Now, since the bombing of the Russian plane over Egypt, Russia's intensified its bombing campaign of ISIS. Is Russia now willing to work with Western nations to defeat ISIS?
Well, indeed, this was the message that Vladimir Putin was presenting yesterday to the West. In particular, he wanted coordinated action with the French Navy. He gave a direct order to his military in order to coordinate action in Syria. Both France and Russia targeted Raqqa yesterday in very heavy air campaigns. So it does seem that Russia wants to use this opportunity to coordinate more with Western partners, but in particular with France.
All right, so what comments came from the foreign minister today?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, Lavrov has called to the West and said that they should not try to oust Assad, that this must be done in order to have a genuine coalition against Islamic State. Russia does not see any difference between the different kinds of militants on the ground in Syria. They support Assad.
So the French president is going to visit President Barack Obama and also President Putin in the next couple of days. I guess France is also on the agenda for Russia and perhaps preparing to get help or to give help in some way.
To Russia in this investigation, do you mean?
What I'm saying is that the French president is coming to Russia to ask for assistance to defeat ISIS or perhaps even further, particularly in the wake of the attacks that happened in France on Friday. What's been coming out in the news in that part of the world about this pending visit?
I think what we can expect is just more coordinated action in Syria with France, perhaps some sort of intelligence sharing, perhaps some sort of weapons exchange. I think this is the kind of thing that we should expect. I am not sure that France would be in the position to help with the investigation into what happened in Egypt, but I think a more close work inside Syria or over Syria as the air campaign continues is what we should be looking at in the days and perhaps weeks and months to come.
All right, getting back to the Syria question, earlier on you talked about how Russia says that this shouldn't be about Bashar al-Assad leaving office, but there was this contention that America was saying that Russia had been focused on Bashar al-Assad's opponents. But this week, they did start hitting legitimate IS targets. Is this seen perhaps as a coming together between America and Russia?
Well, it's really not clear because even Lavrov himself continues to criticize America in particular. He is more open, and the Russian government seems more open to talk with other Western partners. But the criticism against America and not wanting to work with them, and especially the opposition to Assad, Russia does not want to support that opposition which the West is backing. So that still remains a big question of contention, and it's not clear how that is going to be resolved going forward, despite the proposals for the 18th month process, which would include both the Syrian government and the Syrian opposition.
All right, that's where we're going to leave it. That's our correspondent in Russia talking to us live, Albina Kovalyova.